So this is my fifth and final clip on this balance of payments and geopolitics stuff. If you're interested in learning more about that Iranian stuff, because it involved the CIA, British secret intelligence, I mean, it had all these, it's like a James Bond movie here, except it was real life, which eventually led to the overthrow of Mossadegh in 1953, and then, of course, putting in place the Shah as sort of like the American-British puppet, pretty much. It's called Operation Ajax, so you can look that up. Anyway, let me go on here to his discussion about another issue that was sort of going on simultaneously, and that was in Italy. And it was with this guy named Enrico Mattei, M-A-T-T-E-I. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this guy, wow, cool guy, really did a lot of great things in the post-World War II era pertaining to helping Italy. This guy is almost like a little national savior, or should be, because I read this thing in my history book here and said, wow, this guy did a lot of great things. Anyway, and of course, the reason I had to grab this is because he talked a lot about balance of payments issues. Not too many people find that to be a popular topic, but this guy did. So, so that's why I bring him up. So he's cool like me. He talks about balance of payments issues. Anyway, in 1945, so this is right after World War II. Italy is pretty much destroyed. He cited some statistics, like for instance, in the 1945 Italian GNP, gross national product, was only at the level of 1911. Okay, GNP again, and it's covered in chapter 2 of your textbook, is referring to national income, basically. So sort of income at a national level. And then he also cites another statistic that the GNP fell 40% in real terms. So, in other words, in terms of real output. So, in terms of how much, actual physical stuff the economy is producing. It could be like cars or steel or services, like accounting services, was down 40%. So we're not a good time. Country's destroyed. And of course, there's also another problem, kind of interesting, because Italy lost, I guess, control over its colonies, right? Because this is the same time period as the Iranian stuff is going on, right? Because that was 1953 in Iran. So it's the same. We're talking the same sort of time period. This anti-colonial movement that's going on also hit Italy. So the Italians who are in these foreign colonies now are coming back to Italy. So you have a situation where the country's income is collapsing, and you have lots more people. It's like having a population boom. So they had a whole bunch of problems. In fact, there was actually, he was talking about how the standard of living in Italy was very low, which makes sense, because now you have less income being spread around to more people. So the per capita GNP, or the income per person, you have less income and more people to share it with, means that each person gets a smaller amount. So the standard of living is falling, and there's also talk of starvation as well. So this is very serious. So this Enrico guy sets out on this sort of national Italian recreation, like let's get the country back together. And so in 1945, the government puts him in charge of this company called AGIP, which stands for, it's like Azienda Generale Italiane Petroli. So it's an oil company. And basically what he does is he goes out and says, I think Italy should be independent. We want to reconstruct our economy, and we want to have independent energy supply. So he goes out on this big, massive oil exploration, and he strikes it big, right? He makes all these big discoveries in, it's up, I don't know, somewhere in northern Italy somewhere. And so basically, because he found all this stuff, he was pretty much given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, and keep going. You're great. We love you. You're doing a great job for Italy. So just keep doing it. So they pretty much gave him carte blanche to run this company, which was called again AGIP, which was an oil and natural gas company. However he wanted to. And he had a quote in his book, and I'll read it to you. This is what he wrote. The drain of the precious dollar reserves of Italy to pay for oil imports from the American and British oil majors was the largest problem in Italy's post-war balance of payments deficit. Right? So in other words, Italy has this big balance of payments deficit. What does that mean? It's importing like crazy oil from this sort of British American oil companies. He actually he coined the term, he called them the Seven Sisters, because there were 7 big companies that controlled all the oil. Right, so it's an oligopoly. This is textbook oligopoly stuff. And so how do you pay for this? Well, you had to pay for it in dollars, right? Because you had to pay the Americans and the British in dollars. Was this sort of the international currency? So that means to buy all of this oil, you had to demand like crazy foreign exchange over sort of the supply of foreign exchange, so that central bank would have to use up its precious foreign exchange reserves. So part of the reason why he wanted to do this national independence, to cut down on dependence from importing oil from the Americans and from the British, the Seven Sisters, was so that the Italian government didn't have to make up for that deficit in the balance of payments, right, where the supply of foreign exchange, US dollars, is much lower than the demand, which of course would cause the Italians to draw down their reserves of US dollars. So part of the reason for this national independence movement and to develop their own homegrown oil industry was to prevent or to stop, to slow down the reduction of the foreign exchange reserves, right? That of course the Italians would need to buy other stuff, and that was sort of the whole point. So he did a lot of great things. Basically, he developed pipeline systems across the country. He ended up, sort of forming this bigger company called ENI, which he was the president of. He pissed off the oligarchs. This is sort of microeconomics. But you see, the Seven Sisters, those British and American 7 companies that were running the show, they were trying to do what all good oligarchs do, which is jack up prices and limit output. So sell less oil, refine less, and sell it for a really high price. Mattei's plan was to try to maximize production at lower prices. So he was sort of the guy who was going against the cartel, and that's why they didn't like him, is because he was breaking the rules. He was trying to get lots of oil out there and cut the prices. In fact, there was actually an interesting story where in just 1 year, he got them to lower, I think it was, yeah, here it is. Between 1959 and 1961, he was able to lower the gas prices for the domestic Italian, car drivers 25%. So this is not great for your oligarchs. He also got himself involved in a lot of other deals with other countries, like Russia. Of course, this is during the Cold War, so that was somewhat controversial. And also Egypt, and there was another one. Oh, and Iran. And so that's why he was a very controversial character. So, and of course he eventually died in some mysterious plane crash, because we don't really know why. There's some speculation he was assassinated. Anyway, I'm out of time. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a very fascinating field. And that's it. Time's up.